Hi guys, Jacqueline here, and I am going to be showing off our top-down shooter that we've been making in one of our classes for school. So first things first, I want to show you that everything that we did have before is still in. So I'm just going to play this really quick. We'll just maximize that so you can see it. So we want to know that our character still moves, that we have a UI health bar, which is here, and that we can take damage. So as I run into the square, you'll see that the health bar updates with the amount of health that I have left. Okay, so now I have reached the number of health where I can die and then be deleted. So all of that is still in there. So the next thing that we're going to go over is our enemy stuff. So let's check our checklist. First, we're going to go over now and to show off that that is correctly. So let me put that up there just so we have a bit bigger viewing screen. Cool. So for the nav mesh, essentially we have our environment. We set our environment static. So I'm going to add a new cube to the environment just so I can show you how it works. Here it is. I'm just making it 2 wide, 0.5 tall, and I don't know, it's long. Okay. It doesn't really matter what the distance are of it. We're 0.5. So that's more cool. So and make sure that it's also checked as static. I'll only open the nav mesh. So right now, this square here is marked as static. So let's go to that one. I think it's 4. It is walkable. Or not walkable. I don't know. So essentially, we've marked it as static. We baked the nav mesh, and it cut this hole out of the nav mesh because it's static, so that I can't walk there. So we're going to do the same thing here. We set this one as static in the inspector. We're going to go to nav mesh and hit bake, and it's going to cut out a hole around it. Technically, it can also walk on top of it. You can't get to this area because of this cutout here. So, and that's how you kind of do nav mesh. Next, I'm going to show you our enemies. I like put this right over the enemy spawn, so I'm going to move this and rebake. Oh, what the? Alright, here we go. Oh no. What am I doing? Okay. Here. Because the right there. Alright, here we go. Okay, so just like put it over there, rebake. Yeah, so that's actually moved and not at all over my enemy's spawn point. Cool. So next I'm going to show off my enemies and that they actually follow the player and kind of how they work in general. So I'm going to go to scene view real quick. So you can see my enemy has spawned here. And we're going to go bug him. So I'm going to switch to game view. We're going to walk right up to him. He's going to see me. And I'm close enough for him to try to attack. But I'm going to move out of attack range and he's going to follow me. I was close enough for him to attack and he had to make his decision about it first. Okay, cool. So you see that he's following. He's trying to get me, and I'm going to show you how this works in scene view first. So the enemy has this circle around him that represents his field of view. And you can see that that's actually really big. So while you are in his line of sight, well, I guess that's what the circle represents, is the line of sight. So if you were within his line of sight, and his field of view, he can see you. But if you exit, like I did here, you'll see that he doesn't actually try to chase the player, but he instead moves to the last location of the player that was known. So that's this location. Let me add a, I'll add a sphere so you can see it better. Do a sphere, and I'm gonna just check that as trigger. And now I'm gonna run back in, and you can see like what happens with the sphere. So that's our follow target. The enemy, it gets used so that the last known position of the player can be marked. So he moves towards that destination instead of the other one, which was the player. So I'm actually going to move further back. So you'll see that he'll go to that location. And I can show you how this all works. Essentially, let me open up the enemy script and the enemy control script. I think that's maybe the pawn script. Yeah, okay, so I put the field of view stuff in the pawn script. So here, what we do is we check to see if this pawn script is on an enemy, and the enemy script, or the enemy.
It's not working, Mama. Look, it's not working, Mama.
Okay, Olivia, I'm doing class. Go play. Anyway, so essentially what this does is it's saying if this is on the enemy object, because that's the intent that we actually want to do the field of view stuff, because it really doesn't matter for the player. We're going to just save the enemy script so it's easier to access, and we're going to get every collider that is around within the view radius of the enemy. And then we're going to go through each of those colliders. So for every collider that is in that array, we're going to see if one of them is the player. So what that means, hey, stop, you're being too loud, mommy's doing a video. So we're going to see if one of them is the player. And if one of them is the player, we're going to set the target to the transform of the player, because that's the target that we want the enemy to go to. And then we have our, so this is called temp target, but this is just what the target is for like the searching. So this is that sphere, like the game object that sphere was on, and it's setting it to the target's position. So it's basically just going to follow it around until it leaves, until the target leaves the field of view. So we're gonna, what we do is then we calculate the direction to the target by subtracting the target position, subtracting our position from the target position, and then normalizing it, essentially making it equal to less than or equal to 1. And then we're going to calculate the distance from the enemy to the target so that we can use those later. And then we're going to say if the target is within our view angle, so this is just a nifty little calculation here that does that, we're going to see the player. So we have this debug log in here, so these players true. So basically, if the distance to the target is less than or equal to the view radius, then we see the player. So we set that boolean to true, and then we set the last known transform equal to the temp target. So we're just doing that so it updates. So if the player does leave the field of view, that temp target, or that last known transform, is the temporary target. And that's going to be at the position that the player left. Otherwise, so if the distance to the target is greater than the view radius, then we don't see them. And then also, if they're not within the angle, we don't see them. So even though they're in the view radius, but they're not directly in our line of sight, then we can't see them. And then down here I just have some of the, so this angle to target is just an editor stuff. Well, we use it in the editor, so it's basically just calculating the angle to our target. And then I do have the editor script that draws the lines on the ground for us, for the enemy. So in editor script I have our field of view editor, and this just draws the lines. So what we do is we get our pawn script, set it to target, and then we just draw. So like handles.color, color.white, so we're just drawing that color, and then we're going to draw our wire arc. So this is from the field of view transform. So this is basically from the pawn script transform position. Then we get a full 360 excuse me. We're doing a full 360 around that game object in the with the radius of the view radius. So that way we can see how far it is and if the player is in the view radius. Likewise, we have our we're drawing our angle, so the lines that represent our angles for the view angle. That is going to be, let me click back on our enemy. So that's these two lines that extend from him to the edge of the radius. And so that's what those ones are. And then we're just drawing the lines for that. And I just did this so it's easier to see what's going on in editor while we're working out the bugs and getting things working, so that way, like designers or even for myself, it makes it a lot easier to test and debug, because it helps you see what's going on and I think a little bit more. Yeah, you can see that he got to the to that. So that's basically how his view works. So we're gonna run over to our enemy script in our enemy controller and talk about how it decides to idle or attack or just chase or search. So our enemy script holds our state machine switch here in update. So it's just so this derives from enemy controller. It is a child of it, so it has all of the information that the enemy controller script has. So what we're doing is we're taking our current state variable from our enemy's controller script, and we're checking it on every update to see what the current state is. And if the current state is attack, we're going to play our attack method from our enemy controller script. And then these are the requirements that it must meet in order to leave our attack state and go into another state. So if the enemy doesn't see the player, it's going to change from attack into search. And then if it sees the player but it's too far away to attack, it's going to move into our chase state. If if we're in chase, we're gonna just play our chase, whatever's in that, and then to transition out of chase and into another one, into search, we need to not be able to see the player. So that's this one. So if we can't see the player, we're gonna switch to search, and then if we can see the player and it is close enough to attack, we're going to attack. And then in order to, so we have idle here. And then idle is basically just for, it's basically just for going when you spawn, and then after you search, if you can't find the player, it goes back to idle. So it's going to call the idle method on our enemy controller script, whatever's in there, and then it's going to check to see if the player is, if we can see the player and if they're in a close enough distance to attack. Okay, let me just change that because that was actually wrong. It was basically saying if it was in the view radius, but what we want it to be is within the attack distance, because that's when we should attack, not... Alright. And then if the player sees, if the enemy can see the player but it's too far away to attack, we're going to just chase the player. So once we're in the search state, we're going to call our search, but then we're going to check to see if the distance between the enemy and the player is if they're at the player. So if the distance is less than 0.5 and we can't see the player, then we're going to go into idle. So this is essentially if we get to the last known transform and we don't see the player still, we just go switch into idle. And then if we do see the player and it's too far away to attack, then we're going to chase them. And then likewise, if we do see the player and they are close enough to attack, we're going to attack them. So that's how that works. It's just a big switch statement that checks which state the enemy is in. Cool. So in our enemy controller script, we have our enum that holds all of our states. Essentially, this is just making it so that it uses numbers, but it makes it more readable for us because we can instead giving it a meaningful name instead of just doing 0, 1, 2, 3. We have idle, chase, attack, and search. So those are a lot more memorable, and as we code, we're going to be able to use them easier than just using the 1, 2, 3, 4. So then we also have our change state void. This is the method that gets called when the enemy changes into a new state. So here, if we can't see the player, go to search. So change state AI states.search. So that's actually calling the change state method here. And all it's doing is setting the current state to the new state and restarting the state start time. And that's important for stuff later. And then we have our idle method. So this is what the enemy state machine in an enemy script is telling it to do. So when it's in idle, it calls this method, and all it's doing is setting its destination to itself, and then setting its speed to 0. So that way it doesn't move. It just wants to be where it already is, and it can't actually move. As far as the animation, it won't play any walking, and it'll just play the idle animation. Then we have our attack method. So this gets called when we switch into their attack state. And then we're setting is attacking is true because we are. And then we're setting the nav mass agent's destination to the player's destination. And then if we are attacking, we're going to actually only attack during certain times. So that way it's not like attack. It's actually attack, wait, okay, I could attack again, attack. So that's basically what that's doing. What we have it doing is saying if time.time is greater than attack start time plus the wait time, then we're going to attack again. So we have a method on pawn that handles the attacking, and we'll check that out right now. So here, handle attacking, this is for the enemy, so we just get the enemy's enemy component, so it's easy to reference. Then what we do is we set the enemy's attack start time equal to time.time, so the time that this is happening right now, and then we're setting its animation boolean is attacking to true, so it'll play the attack animation. We also have this end attack method, and this is for the enemy. Basically what happens is when the attack has ended, so the animation has ended, we have an animation event on that animation that calls end attack. So we get its enemy pawn component again. We set the boolean is attacking to false, and then we also set the is attacking boolean in the enemy pawn enemy script, or enemy controller script. No, it's just the enemy script is attacking to false. So that way we have like that attack wait thing going on. Cool. And then moving on to chase. So chase is just basically we're just sending the nav match destination, so it's here, equal to the player's current destination, or the yeah, it's just the current destination. And then we have on the pawn script, it handles the enemy movement. So here we'll have handle enemy movement. We're just setting its animation speed, so its float parameter equal to the current speed, so just whatever speed that the enemy is supposed to be having. which is set in the inspector by the designers. So then we also have our search function. So here we're setting the destination to the last known transform position of the player. So that's that little like sphere that was following the player around. And then how we get there is we just handle enemy movement. So it just sets the speed, and then the animation takes care of everything else. It moves for the player. So we are using root motion there. So that I think is everything. As far as how the enemy decides what to do and how it works. Oh, it died. Oh, it's probably because I was in the code. Cool. So, that's not what I wanted. Let's move back. Alright, next, I did talk about how it uses root. I'm going to go on the enemy and just show you a little bit more in detail. He's not spawned. Let me play the game. Yeah, and then we should see the stuff pop up. Okay. Let's not have that maximized. Alright, so you have our enemy is spawned. Whoa. Alright, here we go. Let me click on you. So our dude here has a state tree. He has idle and walk in his blend tree. We're using, for this one, I'm just using a 1D because of the fact that he's a zombie, and the animations for the zombie has basically only idle and walk, run, attack. It doesn't have all of the walk forward left, walk forward right things that the other that the player has. So so I decided to go with a 1D. So as his speed increases, he goes to walk, and as it decreases, it goes to idle. Yeah, you can see that here. Let me just play him. Right, so he's idling, now he's walking. His walk is pretty slow. But I have the blend tree handling all of the movement here, and you can see that. And on the animations for the enemy, yeah, see, like, these are all his animations. Says idle. We've got this set up so he doesn't move, and then we've got the walk. And then he can move for the walk. Let me go back to the playing and click on the enemy. Oops, I forgot that it like is maximizing. I'm doing that for you guys. Okay, and alright, okay, so yeah, so apply root motion. It says it's handled by script. So that is being applied. So our enemies are using root motion. They're using it to move. So, and you can see that in the script here, because on the pawn script we have handle enemy movement. All it does is set the speed. So it doesn't actually tell it where to go. The nav mesh is telling it where to go, and the enemy, and the root motion is moving it forward. Cool. Let's see what's next. Enemy shoots a player. So I actually didn't include shooting for the enemy just because I am making a zombie game. And instead of having shooting, I have the attack that the zombie does. I can do a enemy shooting if it's absolutely necessary. But I really wanted to stay with like the theme because I really wanted the enemies to, you know, bite, attack, maybe throw things. But enemy, like, he could totally have a gun, it'd probably be fine. So basically I just have that so they attack, so when they get within range they attack. And we saw that in our state machine that I showed you guys earlier. Let's see what else we have to do. Yeah, so because I didn't include the shooting, just as far as a designer choice, I guess, they are not able to equip weapons, but I could easily get this working. Yeah, so then I have enemy death. Let me show you guys that. Let me pick up a gun. Alright, let's see. Yeah, so when he dies, he just kind of falls down and dies. So I have them staying for a while, just because I really like when games kind of do that. They leave their dead guys there for a while, but you come back later and they're gone. So he does ragdoll on death. He plays his death animation. And then, oh yeah, so enemies spawn over time. So that is true, that he will respawn, which is kind of what I was talking about earlier. So let me kill him. And then it should, a new one should spawn. Okay, maybe not. Let's see. I might have been messed up with a change that I made earlier. So this is handled by the game manager. So let's open that up. Scripts, game manager. No, where? Here it is. Let's see, here's our game manager. So if timer is not set, set enemy timer. So this is what handling the instantiation of it. So if time is greater than or equal to the enemy spawn timer plus wait time and not enemy. Enemy must be a boolean that I have. Oh, if it's like null, I'm guessing. Okay, so then when we go to health, let's see if where's kill? Okay, here. So oh, okay, I see. What we should do is just take that out. That's why it's not working. Alright. So then it should work. Oh, you know what? It's not gonna work. I need to check. What we do is I like change this and what we're gonna do is if kill equals enemy, we're gonna name object find with tag and then whatever that is. Actually, we could do that either way. So, game object, I guess, equals, it's not gonna let me do that. Go. Equals, game object dot find with tag, and then whatever the string that gets passed in there is. Okay, so if go get component enemy. Okay, because we only want this to happen if it's an enemy. Alright, boom. And then You destroy. Okay. We're gonna put that down here. Okay. And then we'll clean this up because it's quite a mess. There we go. Alright, so now it should work. If we go here, I'm going to start playing that. Start playing. So basically it just passes a string in because that's at the end of the player animation. Alright, let's see if I can kill him. Let's make sure that he dies and... Okay. It's not being deleted though. Oh, enemy tag not defined. Okay. Yay. Cool. I just need to make sure. Let's see, our enemy. And then we'll give him the enemy tag. I generally try not to use tags, but I figured this is the easiest, quickest way to get this done and working for the video. Here we go. So that should work. So pick up our machine gun. Shoot him. Oh, he didn't do his animation. Okay, so that's gonna have to be a animation that I put in. Okay, well, moving on. Enemy spawn points shown using gizmos. Yeah, so I kind of already showed you guys that. Then, yeah, okay, cool. So that's pretty much everything. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.